The next section of Suzuki's introduction to the Lankavatara Sutra is entitled The Five Dharmas. Before concluding this section, we must not forget to mention what is known as the five dharmas in the Lanka, making up one of the main topics of discourses. The five dharmas and the three svabhavas are different ways of classifying the same material. The five are appearances, names, discrimination, right knowledge, and suchness, the Sanskrit for suchness being tathata. The first three correspond to the two of the three svabhavas, while the last two belong to the parinishpanna. Our relative knowledge starts with perceiving appearances to which names are given. Names are then thought real, and discrimination is carried on. We can say that the discrimination has been with us from the first, even when what is called perception has not taken place. For naming is impossible without some form of discrimination. Then the worst thing comes upon us as we begin to persuade ourselves and think that by giving names, existence has been successfully disposed of, and feel comfortable about the problems of religion. Although without naming no knowledge is possible, right knowledge is not to be had here. For this is the inexpressible, the unnameable. It is the meaning not to be grasped by words. In this the Lanka permits no equivocation. It most emphatically advises us not to attach ourselves to words. So that really is the bottom line, critical sort of meta message and explicit message within the Lankavatara Sutra, within the Prajnaparamita Sutras, within Mahayana Buddhism generally, because it's the fact that discrimination implies duality, and words are the basis for duality, and duality not being fundamentally real, that names, words, concepts cannot give us a sense of the real, not in a truly fundamental way. They can only be a finger pointing at the moon, so to speak. They can only be suggestive of an intuitive experience of non-duality. Going on, the object of right knowledge is suchness of things, as not conditioned by the category of being and non-being. So transcending being and non-being is very profound. In some ways it's easy to latch on to the notion of non-being or non-self, non-personhood. But, that also is an error. So again, it's neither being nor non-being, neither this nor that, neither form nor void, neither nirvana nor samsara. It is in this sense that ultimate reality is said to be like the moon in water. It is not immersed in it, nor is it outside it. We cannot say that the moon is in water, for it is a mere reflection. But we cannot say that it is not there, for a reflection though it may be, it is really before us. Plurality of objects is not real from the point of view of relativity, as well as from the point of view of suchness. If someone declares such reality as maintained by the Mahayana is too ethereal, too phantom-like, too unreal for our religious aspirations, the Lanka will immediately retort, quote, "You are still on the plane of relativity," close quote. When the Arya Vijnana is awakened, tathata is the most real thing, and a term most fittingly applied as far as our power of designation is concerned. Well, that's one term, suchness or tathata. Again, that immediate experience of the here and now. What Ram Dass calls in the title of his book, Be Here Now. So the next large portion of the introduction pertains to the message of the Lanka, and it breaks down into a variety of subsections. There are many other thoughts of interest in the Lanka which may be discussed in this introduction, but as I have already given up many pages to it, and as the reader who wishes to know more about the sutra may go to my studies in the Lankavatara, I will say just a few words about the position of this sutra among the general Mahayana Buddhist texts. And again, his companion book is great, Studies in the Lankavatara. I actually had done a little bit of recitation of excerpts from that and may focus in more on some of the key concepts from there in the future. So, while we are still in the dark as to how Mahayana Buddhism developed in India, we know that when it was introduced into China by the missionaries from India and Central Asia, it was already regarded as directly coming from the Buddha's own golden mouth. All these sutras are purported to come from the mouth of the Buddha. And, it's not really, to my mind, that critical to sort of pin down the historical accuracy of some of these things. In fact, if we really drill down, we have to acknowledge that these Mahayana sutras were really developed in a period far after the Buddha's parinirvana, the historical Buddha Sakyamuni's parinirvana, that is. But, while some may think that, well, these were actually sutras that he preached during his lifetime and were only transcribed many hundreds of years later, again, that's to my mind neither here nor there relative to the question of what is the truth, what is the validity, what is the profundity, what is the sublime message that's being given through these wonderful scriptures called the Mahayana canon. As the sutras were translated into Chinese, the first of which appeared in 68 AD, they profoundly stirred the Chinese and then the Japanese mind, awakening their religious consciousness to its very depths. The following are the most important Mahayana texts that thus served to move the religious feelings of the Far Eastern peoples and are still continuing to do so.